They always tried to tell me not all things could last forever, but I thought you and I could get through anything together. Those were the kinds of words Max would sing at the local rock and roll burger joint. I was told I couldn't make it. I just had to sit and take it, up until the day when I met you. He and his buddies PJ and Bobby thought they'd be skating with the pros at this point in their lives, but they didn't have very many lucky stars to count. So now they were stuck in grad school, getting a steady, boring life lined up for them. Little days felt like eternity. Then you told me your heart burned for me. Why'd you have to leave me here so blue? On the other hand, they did learn to play instruments. At some point, they thought they could be skaters and rockers at the same time. Max played guitar, Bobby played bass, and PJ played drums. They used to play a bunch of this skate punk stuff that would go great with the X Games, but now they were lost in the depths of reality. So they began playing the mopey, lost in love stuff that the barflies would flock to. Please, tell me why you had to leave me. Max was one with the teary-bearded booze hounds. He was saying of someone who left him a decade ago and would probably never come his way again. In the audience sat two proud dads. Well, one of them was proud. The other dozed off to this kind of, as he'd say, lullaby. As the song finished, Goofy applauded with the inebriates. PJ, on the other hand, looked disappointed at his dad Pete, who pretty much slept through the whole performance. Goofy nudged Pete in the ribs. Huh? What? Pete muttered. Oh, show's over, thank God. Max sat all alone in the green room. He could hear things from the outside, like Pete lecturing PJ about giving up on his dreams and Bobby trying to be smooth with the ladies and failing miserably. But the only thing he could focus on was a picture hanging from the top of a mirror. It was Roxanne, sitting on the edge of her porch. Her luscious legs, her high-waisted shorts, and her loving eyes looking right at the camera. Right at Max. It was almost like she was still there with him. Just then, Goofy silently came in. Hey, Dad, Max said, feebly. Goofy could always tell when Max was blue. Nothing made a father happier than making his boy chipper. He just sat down right next to his little rock star. It didn't take long for Goofy to notice the picture of Roxanne. You miss her, don't you, Max? Goofy quite rightly asked. She was the one, Max asserted. She was the one. Goofy took his time thinking of what to say. If he said something right off the bat, he'd probably say something that just baffled or outright annoyed Max. You know, Goofy finally said, I sometimes feel the same about your mother. Max listened closely. Goofy rarely ever talked about this long-lost mother. No one else had really given me a chance, Goofy continued. Then you came along, and she was nowhere to be found. Max froze stiff. Actually, even though he never knew for sure why Roxanne left him, there was a reason he had been thinking of. But if it was true, it might be too much for him to handle. So he tried to tell himself it wasn't true, even though it still made things confusing and upsetting. Goofy could tell his son was thinking about something. Sadly, as much as Goofy tried, he wasn't much of a people person, even when it came to little Maxie. Max, is there something you want to tell me? Goofy warily asked. That made Max feel very anxious. He didn't look at his father. Goofy could clearly tell his son wasn't ready to explain what was going on. So they just sat there with their thoughts, giving each other their emotional space. Not 10 blocks away, a handsome little tyke lay in bed with the lights out and the door closed. Nobody could see or hear that he was playing video games past bedtime. He was getting closer and closer to the end, and then came the knock on his door. In came the boy's mother, who was not the type to accuse her boy of pretending to be asleep while hiding his portable game under the covers. She gave him a gentle kiss on the cheek, and the boy could feel his mother's smooth, long red hair touch his face. "Good night, Barry," Roxanne sweetly whispered. And right after she left the room and shut the door, Barry went right back to his game. Roxanne sat alone in the neatly furnished living room. On the side table, coffee table, shelves, and all over the wall were framed pictures of her, little Barry, and a dashing man in a suit. You'd think this was the home of a perfect family. But as the sound of the car pulling into the driveway grew louder, Roxanne could feel a wrenching feeling in the pit of her stomach. Strangely, she did used to get a similar kind of feeling one time when she was 14. The difference was, back then, it was exciting. Now it was terrifying. Roxanne took a deep breath and walked to the door. Through the door came a well-dressed man who had money written all over him. "Hey," said Roxanne, giving him the cheek kiss required whenever he waltzed through the door. "How was your day, Thomas?" the man mockingly mimicked. "How was it?" asked Roxanne, with as much sincerity as she could muster. "Well, you know how much we pulled in today?" Thomas asked, sitting down in his chair. "How much?" Roxanne asked, sitting down in her chair. $95,000. Roxanne began to feel even more anxious. Business was not the kind of world she lived in. She knew if she said the wrong thing, Thomas would probably get irritated with her. Thomas just flashed her an eye, waiting for a response. Roxanne took a deep breath, preparing for a tirade. "I'm sorry," she uttered. Thomas sighed and leaned back in his chair. "I can't work with these people," he shrugged. Roxanne quietly sighed in relief. "Is Barry asleep?" Thomas asked. "Yeah," Roxanne replied. Thomas practically smirked at Roxanne without her looking. He took pride in being the supposedly more perceptive one. He stood up and headed upstairs. It took Roxanne about 20 seconds to figure out what was about to happen. But by the time she got up and made for the stairs, Thomas was already at Barry's door. "Give it to me," Roxanne could hear Thomas demand. "Give it to me!" When Roxanne got upstairs, Thomas had the portable device in his hand. "Now go to sleep," Thomas ordered Barry, shutting the door. "Tom," Roxanne began, trying to reason with him. "What?" said Thomas, raising his voice. "You want him to stay up all night? Is that it?" Roxanne had nothing to say. Even though Thomas always made things very uncomfortable for her and Barry, it was like everything he said was true. "Roxanne," Thomas continued as he entered his and Roxanne's bedroom, "I don't know how many more times I gotta say it. You've gotta be more assertive." "Tom, he's only 10, Roxanne argued. "Only 10, Thomas laughed. "In a year he'll be in middle school." Feeling victorious in his very brief verbal bout, Thomas plopped down in bed. That is, not before flashing Roxanne and I to get in bed with him. As Roxanne climbed into bed, she tried to relieve the tension in her body. If Thomas felt an ounce of stiffness on her, it wouldn't be good. Thomas wrapped her in his arms from behind, securing her in place. About 4 hours later, Thomas had begun to snooze. Roxanne hated that sound. It was like a bear horking up spit and aiming right at her ear. But she stayed up for the last 4 hours because she was waiting until he was unwakeable. Her eyes had been fixated on the bedside drawer this whole time. Finally, she slowly and cautiously opened it, trying to make as little noise as possible. Then she lifted up the board on the bottom, and the wood made a rather loud clack. Thomas raised his head, stopping the snoring for a bit, and then plopped down again. Relieved, Roxanne took out a little something from under the board. It was a picture of her and a very handsome boy in a red jacket and jeans. This was the one who gave her that good feeling inside when she was young, the one who made her feel happy and free, not just safe and controlled. She stared at the photo for a full half hour, just enough to make it easier to fall asleep in the arms of Thomas. Finally, Roxanne put it back in the drawer, and then fell into a dream full of bright, breezy wheat fields and that handsome devil named Max. "Oh, heck yeah!" PJ exclaimed. "Haven't heard this in a minute." As Maximilian were headed down the road to their next venue, "Stand Out" by Powerline came on the radio. PJ and Bobby had some fun singing along, but Max could only mope in the back seat. This was the song he sang to win Roxanne over way back in the day. He dressed up like Powerline and lip-synced it as he looked right into Roxanne's eyes. Now that he was older, he began to think it was a move he shouldn't have made. All the other boys in school did similar things to try and impress Roxanne, and Max hated those guys. The band made their way to a nice house in the neighborhood way up in the mountains. Out in front stood Frank, the man of the house. "Hey, you Maximilian?" Frank asked. "He is," Bobby snootily replied. "I am Roberto Cedario, and this is Peter Ilyich Choke on my coffee ski." As Bobby hopped out of the van and made for the trunk, Frank just stared at him, not understanding one word the dude just said. "Don't worry, he doesn't write lyrics," Max quipped. Frank chuckled as he noticed all the equipment in the back. "Let me help you guys." "Oh no, that's fine," PJ replied. He was the type to do everything, while his fat dad lazed around in the recliner. "I insist," Frank responded, and they all unloaded the drums, amplifiers, and everything. "It's really nice of you to play for my son. He's always wanted a big band to play for his birthday." "He asked us for Simple Plan," came a squeaky voice from the side, "but I told him we'd get something even better." "High praise, honey," Frank sarcastically pointed out. Max would have laughed, but then he noticed who that squeaky voice was coming from. "Stacy?" "Hey there, Maximum," Stacy greeted. Stacy was Roxanne's best friend in high school. Truth be told, she was not a very attractive girl. She wore big glasses and didn't really have an aesthetically pleasing face. But she made up for it with a very hipster wardrobe, and ultimately by being a very good friend. It's crazy," Stacy rambled as she helped unload. "Everybody I went to high school with is getting famous. Chad's playing for the Patriots, Lisa's got 100K on Instagram, Dante works at the comic store, but you're making all the money, playing all the joints, getting all the ladies." As everyone else took the stuff inside the house, Stacy noticed Max looking a little blue. He was staring at a picture that was buried under all the chaos. "Max, you alright?" "Yeah, I'm alright." Max just wearily heaved up his guitar case and made for the front door. Then Stacy noticed the picture and picked it up. On the back side, it had M and R written in a big heart with an arrow. On the other side, it showed teenage Max and Roxanne smiling and holding hands. Stacy smiled and nodded. Mm-hmm. She knew what it was.